Hello and welcome back to the Womanifester podcast. I am so excited to have one of my clients on the podcast, Rosanna Gill. Rosanna reached out to me in December of 2021. We started working together in January of 2022. And in February and March, she has had such beautiful manifestations that I just had to have her come on and share with you. But I also want her to dive into the work that she does and how she herself has moved through her healing journey when it comes to starting a business and beyond. So, Rosanna, would you mind please introducing yourself to the Womanifester audience, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I am Rosanna Gill. I am a coach and hypnotherapist who works with people who want to release the things that have been holding them back, whether that's a limiting belief, shame, fear, whatever it might be. And I reached out to you when I was completely beside myself and was like, why am I not doing this manifesting thing? And why is there this thing in my belly I can't get rid of, no matter how many breathwork sessions I've done? And it's just been such an amazing journey working with you so far.
Oh, good. Yeah, it was so funny because I heard that message. I was driving across the country on my way home for the holidays, and I played it in my van a few times, and I was like, this is a really interesting message, right? Because you were like, there's something in my stomach. I can't, like, I'm doing breath work. I can't move. And I was like, we need to have a conversation. There's something going on here, and spirit led you straight to me for a reason. So let's dive in. So you didn't even reach out to me about helping you with your business.
No.
I didn't even know. Yeah. So can you give us a little bit of context as to how and when that shifted?
So when I heard you on the Manifestation Babe podcast, and you were talking about breathwork, you were talking about like intuition, and I was like, okay, I've been doing some breathwork sessions and I still have this like pit in my stomach that I can't get rid of, and I don't understand it. And also just like, it's funny to like put myself back there because I feel the same like frantic energy that I felt then, because that's how I felt when I reached out to you. I sent you a voice note on Instagram, which is so funny to me because it was just after I sent it, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to hear from her because I sound out my mind. But I was so grateful that you did respond, and you were so kind in your response. I was like, all right, well, she passed that test. Goodness gracious. But then when we actually had a call, your energy was so calming. And so what I want to emanate when I work with clients, that even though I didn't even know that you did business coaching, I just was like, help me with this thing in my stomach. I was like, yes, this feels right. And it was really nice to just go off of how good something felt, and not to come from a place of, I'm broken, can you fix me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I know I made a lot of decisions when I first started getting coaching a year and a half ago that were much more from that frantic, I'm broken, can you fix me? Will I be fixed by association? And I didn't feel that with you. It felt very peaceful. And the word that just came to my mind was home.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So by the time we had already met, you had already decided that you wanted to be a coach because you were in training for hypnotherapy, right?
Right, right. I just started a program that was like including neuro-linguistic programming, time techniques, hypnotherapy. Um, but I still didn't really have like, I couldn't quite ground what I wanted to create and who I wanted to serve.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when speaking with you, it was like, okay, I think this is going to help a lot, because I have always been in the corporate world, and I've always, not always, but I've pretty much done really well in the corporate world. But I have no like roadmap on starting a business, creating a business, and no less creating a business that is so founded in energetics and how you serve people and healing, that it's like, oh, I'm not gonna try this on my own. I'm not doing this on my own.
That's such a good point. Yeah. To know, like, okay, this is uncharted territory. It's like just heading out into the woods in a place you've never been before without a guide. You know nothing about bears in Tahoe and how to interact with them, right? It's so much nicer to have a guide with you who's been there before and walked that path. And especially, like you said, from the spiritual perspective, one thing that we talked about before we started recording was a spiritual practice. I would describe it as a spiritual practice that you do when it comes to people interacting with you on Instagram. Can you talk about that gratitude practice that you mentioned?
Yes. So I actually heard about this on a podcast and was like, I'm definitely doing this. Whenever I create a reel or I create a post, any person who likes it, comments, whatever, like I take a second to look at their name and just send them love and gratitude. And it's so interesting, like how palpable the love is when I do that. And I'm not saying that like that's why that there's been more engagement or that there've been more likes or whatever you want to call it. But I do, if nothing else, even the ones that aren't getting as much of that engagement, it just feels so much better to create from that space and to know that what I'm creating, I have intentions for love. And whether that's one person that receives it or 50, it doesn't matter. That I get to create something positive in a space that a lot of times people say is so negative.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about Instagram a little bit, because when we first met, the majority of the things that I saw on, at least in the first few cells of your profile, because I think about it when I'm, okay, so let me back up. I follow all my clients on Instagram, and pretty much only my clients, maybe like a few coaches that I'm considering working with, so that I can keep an eye on their content. And I look at y'all's content through the lens of someone who is just now landing on your page, just now discovering you, because that's the whole point of Instagram, is that you're growing your audience. People are finding you and wanting to work with you. And I noticed a lot of videos that were like goofy and funny. And I was like, she has no problem being on camera. Like, this is going to be easy fix, right? Like, I was like, channel all that energy into service, into helping somebody with a problem, and in their journey and on their path. And I feel like I've seen a huge shift in your content from that. Can you talk a little bit about what that shift has meant for you and how it's changed the way you create content?
Well, I think a big part of it was getting clarity on who I wanted to serve, because it's like, okay, fine, I can show up and, bring humor to the world and be goofy and silly. And I still love doing that. But I have this amazing opportunity with a platform to also talk about things that I really am passionate about. And I really think that people will make a difference in people's lives. So I can bring my humor into that, but be very clear on who I want to speak to and finding my people and my people finding me. And I think coming from that perspective really made a big difference. It's definitely made it easier as far as like, even when I'm looking at, okay, what am I creating this week? And what do I want my people to see? Whether they follow me or whether they'll discover me, it doesn't matter. What do I want them to know about themselves, or what's possible for themselves, and what can happen in their lives if they know what real self-love feels like, and freedom feels like. And coming from that place, one is so much more inspired. Like, it's so fun to like figure out what to write, or figure out like how to incorporate a fun thing from a reel into that. But it feels more organic, and it feels easier too. It doesn't feel so ad hoc where it's just like, oh, this is funny, I'm going to post it. And then I'm laughing at myself. I'm kikiing with myself, but maybe doesn't really speak to anyone in particular.
Totally. Yeah. And, you've signed a client from this type of content. So I want to get to that. But first, let's talk about February and what happened in February. So we started working together in January, and you set the goal in February to manifest $5,000 in, quote, non-monetary abundance.
Yes.
Can you tell us about what that means and what ended up manifesting from that?
So the reason I wanted non-monetary is because I had been like desperately trying to manifest money. And I was like, all right, well, that doesn't seem to be working. So maybe I'm getting my wires crossed on what abundance means. So why don't I switch abundance from only being in the form of money, cash money, to non-monetary things, like just receiving. And within like 8 days, I had a friend that I had been working with as a beta client tell me, I don't want you as my friend starting a business doing things for free. So I'm going to pay for you to go with me to a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. which also, by the way, I set the intention that I wanted to be able to travel this year whenever and wherever I want. Now, had I specifically said Costa Rica, no, but was I thrilled when she said that? I was like, oh my God, yes, let's put me on a beach. Let's do yoga. I don't care what we're doing. She could have just said we're going to Costa Rica. I would have been thrilled. But the fact that it was also something that I had been really wanting to do more of was amazing. And it was, I will say, in that moment, I knew what was happening. I'm like, this is what you asked for, but I still had to tell myself, just say thank you. Don't push the blessing away. Don't be like, no, you don't have to do that, because that started to come. And I was like, no, we are receiving now. Like we are taking all the wonderful goodness that can come. And then the other thing was my parents offered, and this is really big, because I know that me starting a business and leaving the corporate world is way more terrifying for them at this point than it is for me, because they sacrificed and they wanted like me to do all the things, and I did all the things to get the really good job and make a good living and have really good benefits. And for them not only to say, okay, we don't get it and we're scared, but we support you. And they also said, we want you to have a nice computer for your new business, and we want to buy you a MacBook. And it was just like, I cried, because not only is it so sweet that they're so supportive, even though it scares them, but I know that another part of that receiving for me was receiving from my parents, because at times I had a really hard time receiving things from my parents specifically, because I felt like it came with conditions. And I got really good at being like, I'm going to do it myself. I don't need anybody's help. I don't want anybody's help, because I don't want you to be able to hold it over my head. So I thought, not only is it great that they're offering this, but the biggest way that I can truly have growth and the ability to receive is to take that from my parents and to not worry whether it's going to be used against me, or to not assume that that would happen. Just take it. Just take it and be grateful and receive.
And don't project that onto them either.
Yes. Yes. And it's funny, because I was thinking about this conversation earlier today, and I realized how much I didn't receive before, just as a general rule, because I was always convinced, oh, if somebody gives you something, they're going to use it as leverage. You're going to use it as a tool for manipulation. And like, I had all these stories, and I sat there and I was like, well, no wonder I wasn't receiving. Like, no wonder it felt like I was just throwing things into the manifestation ether just to hear like crickets, when I had all these beliefs about what would happen when I did receive.
Yeah, it's like you're swimming upstream, or just like being a stone standing in the middle of this gushing river, trying to give you everything that you want. And we're like swimming upstream because of our conditioning, our domestication, our limiting beliefs, our trauma. And that's what this work is all about, right? Revealing that so we can say, wait a minute, it's my birthright to be abundantly supported by everything around me, just like the trees, just like the birds, the earth supports them. Why would it not support me? And allowing myself to receive all the sunlight, receive all the nutrients, receive all the water that I need to thrive and to give back. In their case, they're giving us back oxygen. In your case, you're giving out healing, not giving it. You are supplying healing.
Just heard somebody else talk about oxygen as the ultimate form of abundance the other day. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so true. So true. I love that. I love that analogy.
I love that too. Yeah. Thank you. So you set the intention for 5,000 non-monetary. You manifested a retreat worth how much?
I think the retreat was like 2,500.
And then you manifested a MacBook worth how much?
Like 1,400, 1,500.
Anything else come through?
I have been keeping a log, actually. I've been keeping a log of there were some really beautiful things that happened. Actually, yes. Something that looked like it went not great in January, which was a flight getting canceled, ended up working out, because I was able to get more flights. and use money from one of those flights for a flight in February. So actually I didn't think about that, but yeah, that was another thing, was not having to
Amazing.
pay out of pocket.
And the non-monetary abundance, how did that propel you into the next month, which is March, where you set the goal of 5,000 monetary abundance? What happened then?
So I honestly think part of it was just believing, oh gosh, this is possible. And wow, it's possible even for me. Like this is the biggest thing for me, as I'm not broken.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how many times I've had to say that to myself. Like, I'm not broken. Like, I am, on a journey and I am enjoying it. And I think that's been a big part of it too, has just been allowing myself to enjoy the journey and to be really grateful for every step of it in the midst of it. So for March, it was like, okay, well, we'll do 5,000 again, but this time I wanted in my business. That's where I wanted to come from. I wanted to come in my business. And you were like, okay, specifically a paid in full client, your first paying client. And I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I just assumed that that's implied, but yeah, okay, fine. We'll be really specific and say one paying client. So I got a pay in full client, which was amazing. And then I got, I got like $6,000 back from my taxes, which is bananas to me, because I was like, I'm just hoping I don't owe. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly hadn't done my taxes yet because I was scared to find out. And then I was like, okay, we gotta do this. Like, maybe we'll get like a couple hundred back. And then I still remember walking up the steps and I got my little thingy from my accountant and I look at it and I just started crying. Like, you've got to be kidding me. This is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all because of my business. And again, okay, that's not how I thought it was going to come, but yippee, to go from 5 to 8 grand.
Yep.
I'm still just,
it's amazing. So what are some of the practices or tools or rituals that you've applied over the last few months that have helped you get to this point?
So one has been the daily journaling, and you had me start that from the get-go, and I love it. It is my favorite part of my day. And sometimes this is something that's been really, really beautiful, has been how many times I will write in a single journaling session, I love myself. I deeply and completely love myself. And that is something that I struggled with for so long and was like, okay, I need confidence. Okay, self-love. I keep seeing like the Dove ads, love yourself. Cool. Not really sure what the heck that means. Also not really sure what that means. Like, if I don't look like people that are usually really self-loving look like, or don't have the body type, or don't have like all these things. I don't make what I wanted to make, or whatever it might be. So it was like, how on earth do you get self-love? And it's just feeling like this mystery. And just from months of doing a lot of work, there's been hypnosis, there's been time techniques, and understanding where some of these blocks have come from, and just being with myself.
Mm-hmm.
The breathwork sessions. Oh my gosh, the breathwork sessions. Like, I don't know if this is going to sound crazy, but like, I just love myself so much after a breathwork session. Like, I have so much compassion for myself and so much just willingness to just sit, to not be doing, to not be busy, but just be in the moment. And like all of those things, like, I don't feel like it's one thing. I feel like it's all of it working together, where I can write in my journal, like I said, I love myself and mean it. And no, I'm not convincing myself. I just want to be like, girl, you good. Like, you're deserving of
Mm-hmm.
all of it. And it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And you're about to add breathwork to your medicine bag as well, right? Yay! She's in breathwork facilitator training. I'm so excited about that.
I am too. Because I just feel like having all of the different modalities, the hypnosis, the NLP, the time techniques, the breath work, all of it. One has made me feel more confident in what I can do and help my clients do for themselves. But two, it has just all been a part of my journey. And I don't want to not have any piece of that available to other people,
Mm-hmm.
and to show them like, you can go from thinking you are the lowest of low, that you're damaged goods, whatever it might be, whatever your stories are, because there's usually multiple ones, and you can have so much deep self-love that like not having what you want in this life doesn't even feel possible.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you mentioned before was like your inability to receive. And before we started recording, you talked about like shame work and how doing shame work, shadow work, looking at the source of that, looking at and not necessarily diagnosing, but like picking apart, where did this come from? Why is this affecting me so much? And how can I shift that? Can you talk a little bit more about how you've been able to step more into receiving, and then receiving through your business, receiving in other ways, etc.?
So one of the biggest shadows, I guess, that came for me was during a hypnosis. And I went into it thinking I was going to be releasing generational trauma, which that was released. But the biggest thing for me was the realization that I still looked at myself as damaged goods. And all of this stemmed from a herpes diagnosis at the age of 19. And growing up very, very conservative and having very strong beliefs about what good girls do and how good girls act and what they are, all of those things. And receiving that diagnosis completely shifted my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to college and being like, okay, because another part of it was growing up, I had a parent who was suffering from mental illness. So for me, college was the escape. That's when I would finally get my life. That's when I would finally have all these things that I wanted. And then at 19 to receive that diagnosis. And now I had this belief that, well, of course I would have all these things I wanted because I'm a good girl. I always do what I'm told. I study hard. I work hard. I may not be the smartest. I might not be the most athletic, but dang, I'm going to work the hardest. And there's this thing that I felt was hanging over my head and was like, yeah, but now you're damaged goods. Like you're going to have to work twice as hard just for people to think that you're worthy or to think that you are deserving. And so I think a big part of it was understanding that I had that belief about myself. And I think that happened in like November, December. I recorded a podcast episode about it, and I felt a lot of release and I got a lot of positive feedback, which was helpful. But the biggest thing for me, and what I think also had a lot to do with opening up to receive, was when I was home in January, I told my mother. And this is something that I was diagnosed with 16 years ago, did a podcast, talked about it on my social media. My mom's not on social media, was ready to tell the world, but I had so much fear and so much anxiety about telling my own mother.
Mm-hmm.
And once that was done, once we had the conversations, I just felt like there was this tremendous weight lifted. And it was like, listen, y'all, like anybody could say what they want about me. One, I promise you, I haven't thought it about myself. So good luck finding a unique thing. But two, like, I'm good. I don't have to have shame. And to be able to feel empowered to talk about it and to feel like, even if it just helps one person know, like, hey, I don't care what anybody else says about the stigma of this or what it means. You can still deeply love yourself. You can still do what you want to do in this world. And you don't have to talk about it publicly. That's like completely up to you, but you can still do whatever the heck you want and you're worthy. And I feel like that really was full circle for me. And being able to release that. And I also did some time techniques on like fear and guilt and like, where did this come from? And again, a lot of it was, well, I'm not what I thought my parents would want. I am not who I thought that my family, my lineage, what my ancestors, everything that they've worked so hard for would want. But the biggest rebellion I can do in loving myself is saying, I'm one, open about this, and two, I'm still worthy. I'm not damaged goods. And that has just been like I know I keep saying that, it's just been transformational.
I love it. Yeah. Worthy to receive, worthy to receive all of your desires, worthy to receive anything that you need to feel supported and resourced in this life. You are worthy of. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mm-hmm. One of the things you've mentioned a few times is time techniques. What are those and how do you use them in your coaching?
So, it's so cool. And I know that sounds not super like fancy, but so basically what you're doing is you're asking your subconscious mind, where is the root of this belief? You know, whatever the belief might be. Like, so for me, one of them was sadness, deep sadness, and trying to understand, like, why do I always, like, if something really good is happening, why do I have this for almost foreboding joy? I know Brene Brown talks about that. And where does that come from? And the beauty of time techniques is actually working on the subconscious level and asking your subconscious, where did this happen? When did this happen? And you go to that moment in your mind. You can see yourself, that memory. And what's amazing with it is it might be something that happened as a child. It might even be something that happened in the womb. One of mine was something that I don't remember, but it happened in the womb. And knowing, oh, that's where this stems from. And asking your subconscious, what are the lessons that I need to learn from this? Because every time you feel that sadness, every time you feel that guilt, that shame, the beautiful thing about it is truly your subconscious and your body wanting you to have the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you keep feeling it. When people are like, oh, I'm in this cycle and I can't break it. It's because there are lessons that are meant for you to lovingly learn. And when you can go to the root of it and ask, what is the lesson that I need to learn here? And then you come back to the present and you see all the times that feeling came up and the lessons that you needed to learn from that. And it's not to say that you'll never feel sadness again or guilt or anger, but you will know that it does not have to be something that sabotages you. It doesn't have to be something that completely shifts whatever progress you're making or where you are in your story. It's something it's there in love. And it's the most amazing experience. And I did this with a friend of mine who she felt a lot of self-doubt, a lot of questioning, like, why do I always doubt myself? Why do I always think I'm stupid? And we did this time technique. And she went back to this very specific memory when her father was trying to teach her time and got frustrated and pulled the clock off the wall and was, are you done? Why don't you see this? And this was just apparent in frustration. Like, this wasn't not knocking the father, but for her to see that moment and realize, oh my gosh, and to know, like, feeling that feeling in her body and realizing all the time she had felt that sense and realizing it was never about those moments. Like, it's not about that email from your boss where you're like, oh, they must think I'm done. It's like, no, it's about that little girl who didn't know why she wasn't getting something and didn't know how to communicate that. But the beauty is now you do know how to communicate. I know what I'm doing. I am not this helpless child anymore. It's so powerful.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I think that type of work is so important because we have these patterns, and then a lot of my work is helping people identify their patterns, right? Your work is as well. And to then have a tool and a technique and a conversation that can help shine light on that shadow, right? That's all shadow work is shining light on, like, where did this come from? Why did I put on this layer to believe that I needed to be this way in order to be loved, worthy, what have you, appreciated, whatever it is? I put on this layer because of this event or this conditioning or situation. And now I can remove it, right? Now that awareness, I can choose a different path.
Yes. And it's crazy the decisions that you will make, like the micro decisions that you make from a place when you don't have that. You're not held back by that. And sometimes some of them are so small you don't even realize it. But like, even recently, I was in a situation where I set a standard with someone and they told me, like, I'm not gonna meet that. And I was like, okay. Like, it doesn't have to mean anything against them. It doesn't have to mean I have to negotiate my standards. I can lovingly say, thank you so much for being honest about that. I'm going to go on my way now, but thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it can just be that simple. Like if I wish I had known this stuff, like when I started dating, Lord, but you know what? We all learn it when we're supposed to learn it. And it's amazing to have the lessons when you get them.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. One of the things that's so important to me as a coach supporting people in their businesses is that I don't take on one-on-one clients that I would not hire.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That's like one of my internal criteria is like, do I trust this person? Would I hire them to do a hypnosis for me or what have you? And just so, for anyone who's listening, if you are drawn to Rosanna's energy and you want to work with her, I highly endorse doing so. She's amazing, as you've probably been able to tell. So in February, you set the non-monetary abundance goal of 5,000. Did you hit it?
No.
You didn't hit it, but you came within $1,000 range. Okay. And then in March, you said you bumped up the ante a little bit, which I love. I think that's so important for people to not go, like, if you're experiencing a lot of resistance around receiving $5,000 a month, like bump it down to non-monetary abundance, right? What if someone just gifted you things that added up to that point? I love that. And then once you're like, all right, this is working. I didn't hit my goal, but something even better happened, which is I realized that this is working, right? I was listening to an Amanda Francis, Becoming the Wealthy Woman replay earlier, and she was talking about how some people think like, and you mentioned this, like, oh, it works for me, right? When you realize it works for me. And she was like, duh, what makes you think you're so special that like all these universal laws apply to everybody but you? Like, you're not that special, boo. Like, it works for you too. So anyway, your biggest takeaway is from, even though you didn't manifest the full 5,000 non-monetary abundance in February, you realize this works for me. Let's bump it up a little bit. I've got my belief behind $5,000 in March, and you hit that. What is next for April and beyond?
So now is 10 for April. And here's the beautiful thing too is, I mean, and this to me shows where I am now versus where I was in January when I was like frantic. Not hitting, quote unquote, the goal in February still feels really amazing and really joyful. And exceeding March feels really joyful. So it kind of lets me release any like need for the 10,000 that I want for April to come in any particular, like it's going to come in the way that is the most beautiful and the most wonderful ways possible, whether it's, you know, less than that in April and more in May, or like, it doesn't matter. I am like here for the journey, and it is such a beautiful journey, man, such a beautiful journey. And I'm learning so much about myself. And it's funny because I feel like when I would hear people say that on manifestation podcasts before, I'd be like, yeah, that's cool, but I still want the money. Like, yeah. That's what cute. If you feel warm and fuzzy, where's the money? So like, if you're listening to this, you feel that way, I hear you. I totally get you. But man, is it so nice to like feel grateful for something other than just cash in your bank account.
Yeah. And to know that you can manifest either. You can manifest someone gifting you something, right? That's something I've had to work through. Is I have this dream of creating a retreat center, and someone was finally like, you don't have to fund that. Somebody could be an angel investor, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I can receive money in like not actual cash, like they could buy the property for me or something like that, you know, and opening yourself up to that. And when I know I need to pay my rent and buy organic vegetables and whatnot, then I will have cash for that too. Or maybe someone's going to buy that for me. Like, I'm open to whatever, however the universe sees fit in bringing me the things that I need to feel supported and abundant. Fine, whatever. I don't care if no one signs up for my program and my grandfather wants to gift me $40,000. Great, fine. I don't care. I don't care how it comes in. You know, I just set that goal and then work my belief up to having that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So how can people work with you. If they're drawn to your energy, they're like, I need to work through some subconscious patterns and conditioning. You're an amazing being. How can I get in touch with you and how can I work with you?
Oh, I love that. Thank you. So honestly, the easiest way is through Instagram. I do have a site, but just go to my Instagram. You will see all of me, and there are ways that you can book a discovery call. You can check out podcasts, whatever you want to do, but please connect, and I would love to hear from you.
What is your
Oh,
podcast?
yeah, would help. Oh, my podcast. So I have two: Breaking Labels and Her Path to Purpose.
Beautiful. Awesome. And what are they booking a discovery call for?
So either a hypnosis session or coaching. And I should say also the coaching includes hypnosis. Like if you are a coaching client, we are going to do some hypnosis. We're going to do time techniques. So just know if you're a coaching client, that automatically is included. But you can also just do a one-off hypnosis session as well.
Beautiful. Awesome. And they could also do breath work with you after April 15th.
Yes, and I'm so excited.
Woo!
I cannot wait to incorporate that. Oh, it's been, yeah. That's
Yay. Yes, absolutely. Well, is there anything else that you want the people to know about you or what you stand for or anything that's important to you before we sign off?
You deserve to love yourself. We all deserve to love ourselves. And I don't say that to like do a cheesy thing, but I just think in this world, if more people knew what true deep self-love felt like, we would lead such different lives. We would show up differently. We would ask for things differently. We would demand for ourselves differently. We would co-create differently if we just had a deeper level of self-love. So I hope that if you got nothing else from this, that you know that you have a right to self-love.
I have a question to follow up on that. If someone's listening to that and they're saying, but how do I build my self-love?
Get in touch with yourself. Honestly, a lot of it comes down to forgetting all the conditioning and all the stories you've been told and all the reasons you've been given why you aren't worth self-love, because every one of us came out loving ourselves. Like you learned not to love yourself, not to trust yourself, but at your core, you knew all along. Like that's the beauty of kids. Like they have the audacity to do whatever the heck they want because they know how amazing they are. We just forget. We just forget along the way. So all it is getting back to who you were and who you were created to be. It's there.
Beautiful. Amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. We're going to have you back in a few months or at the end of our contract because I cannot wait to tally up all the things that you manifest both financially and non-financially in your life over the course of our work together.
You and me both. I can't wait to see.
What I love about you is that like you set these goals and you're like so dedicated to them. You know, you're like, this is going to happen, whether it's April or May and it averages out, right? Like I trust that this can happen. So thank you for showing up in your light. Thank you for reminding me, even as a manifestation coach who is imperfect, like what is possible when you just believe. When you believe, I don't say just believe because we do build up that belief. That's the work. But when you believe what is possible in your life and how that can completely shift the trajectory of your lifestyle, your health, your well-being, your love life, your business, what have you, so much healing available.
Oh, thank you. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks so much for being here. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.